I mentioned how we'll work with Title IX. When it comes to the marketing agency or the collective itself, those are outside of. They are simply associated with the university. They are not university. They do not fall under the Title IX binding legal clauses. With the revenue sharing, it is to be determined how that will be dispersed. We don't know if some schools will maybe honor fair pay and other schools will not. And they do believe some university is going to be challenged in court and it will be resolved in court. And that's the future outlook for what is Title IX. It's a revenue sharing. And that's just kind of where we are. I mean, we're basically in the beginning of all of this, and it's not solidified yet. It's still fluid.
Absolutely. A quick reminder. Well, there's two things to touch on in a follow-up to this. I mentioned it briefly when introducing the topic, but this approach that they're doing here, they're emulating a little bit of like what Ohio State is doing, Texas is doing, and engaging with one of these national firms. And I have a thought. Now, I understand, TJ, we were talking before the show. This has been in the works. Some element of this has been in the works for a long, long time, like a year and a half.
Over a year. Yeah, over a year.
Yeah. I'm wondering, though, with the Tony Alford hire, now I understand that there is a lot of factors to that. Obviously, we needed a running backs coach, so that was a factor that hole needed to get filled. But I'm wondering if his knowledge of what Ohio State is doing in NIL, considering he's on the ground recruiting. Right. So he knows exactly what Ohio State is able to do and what they can't do. And I'm wondering if having that extra voice to advocate for this, if that helped a little bit in terms of, kind of getting this to the finish line, or at the very least setting the framework for Michigan's recruiting.
Yeah, I mean, I would think it has to have some impact because here's what he knows. He knows the impact of this organization. He knows what they can do for not only the collective, but the players themselves. So, I mean, I'm sure they did get his counsel to some extent. What I think pushed over the finish line was the recent settlement. I think Michigan was like, because, all right, look, Michigan has held the belief in the administrative department as well as the athletic department of, at Michigan, that revenue sharing was their target focus, which is why they did not jump headfirst into the pool on paying players. This is why they took a tiptoed approach. Listen, I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm simply stating the philosophy that they took. Now that it has been green lighted by the NCAA that they can pay players without getting in trouble, and there's also a revenue sharing model, so it does not have to come from owners. It can literally come from the athletic department's budget. Michigan feels confident now in moving forward with the most optimal strategy to make Michigan the best within the guidelines that the NCAA has given. So they're all in right now. Like, they are all in. And I want to stress again to anyone who maybe wasn't watching earlier, that does not mean we're going to be highest bidder. But what it does mean is we could be competitive and we can guarantee money, which we were not doing. That is a game changer.
So TJ, it sounded like from our last couple sessions here, and we've talked, Michigan has been somewhat selective with recruits as well. Do you think that changes in a little bit, or do you think that right fit and then we pay them? Is that how you look at it?
Yeah, so I'll say this. Because of our approach previously, we missed out on our top targets. We've missed out on top targets. We've had to settle for this class, not yet. This is why there's only 5 in the class. Michigan's being very selective. In previous classes, we've had to settle for second and third and fourth targets. Okay. Some will argue that's not the case, but it is the case. What this does now is, it's what Dusty May has done. If the first thing you come to the program is how much money am I going to make, that's an issue. But if you are about ball and you are a culture fit and they believe in you as the prospect, the talent, the potential, then you are a match for Michigan. And now Michigan can financially become competitive. instead of before unable to offer anything in terms of guarantees. They can only offer projections. Now, if any of you were to work for a company and the company was willing to triple a guarantee, Marquise Davis, instead of just a projection, what company are you going to? You're going to the one that's guaranteeing your salary, because you're just an injury away from a career ender. And not only that, what if you injure yourself your freshman year? You're in the entire year, and then you got your sophomore year, you got to try and get back, and then you're below the depth chart because a new recruiting class has come in. Like, it's too competitive for that shit, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Alford was part of this equation. How much of the equation? That's a question mark. But I feel pretty good. I'll make my prediction right now, which might change. But Alford coaching Orgy and 2025 cover boy, the Don, and Mullings, and the rest of the running backs. I'm counting Orgy in there because he is going to run a bit. I do think they're going to get to 5.5 yards a carry against OSU. I am looking forward to winning at the line yet again. I know we're going to talk about this later, but we're going to win at the line of scrimmage again. At least that's how I see it right now. And so part of that is his actual coaching. Part of that is kind of bringing, I think Alford's probably hungry. Is there anyone on the Michigan roster right now, maybe either of you know, that has ever lost to Ohio State?
Yeah. Quentin Johnson. He was a part of the. Oh, you know what?
I know Tuttle is super old, but he's not.
Yeah, Tuttle would be if he had. Yeah.
Maybe
he lost to Ohio State, but with Indiana. Right. Okay, I got it. Right. So, yeah. So we've never had that bitter taste. Alford has. So, so that it'll be good to. I think it's good to have that perspective. So.
Yeah. I mean, sounds like we're in agreement that we don't know the exact amount. We don't know the percentage of what Tony Alford contributed or not. But his being there and the knowledge of how Ohio State recruits couldn't hurt, and probably had some impetus. So I like this question from Roy. So it looks like you're going to answer that. What high-end recruit could this help us land?
I mean, the very first recruit that comes to mind is Elijah Melendez, who's committed to Miami. He wants to come to Michigan. He is at Miami because of what they are offering financially. If Michigan can offer a legitimate NIL guarantee, which they are now offering, to what number, I don't know. That's what I don't know. So I can't guarantee anything, obviously. He's a player to watch. Another player I would argue is a player you want to watch going forward is Andrew Balboa, 5-star offensive lineman out of Kansas City area. This dude's a monster. I feel like this makes us far more competitive for his services. And then I would also say Jalen Williams, who's a defensive tackle, a 3-tech out of Illinois. He's extremely good friends with Nate Marshall, who is committed to our class already. They're like really good friends. They're in the same area out of Illinois. Those would be big time players. But I mean, I will also say, and the wide receivers, Taz Williams and Quincy Porter. I mean, no doubt in my mind that would help. This makes us far more attractive. Like, I can't stress this enough. There were legitimately players or prospects that Michigan liked that when Michigan's not even in consideration because they don't guarantee NIL. Now that we are willing to guarantee NIL, we are now going to be at least considered. That in itself is a big step from where we were.
Yeah, and look, thank you to the Buckeyes that are hate watching, or even secretly a little like watching this show. We have a comment that I think is spot on from Badass Buckeye. who was obviously an Ohio State fan, saying Michigan has to pay top dollar like Ohio State in order to be competitive. The one asterisk I would say with that, or the one caveat, I shouldn't say but the one caveat to that is the fact that we don't want to do that for every player. I don't think that like 3-star, 2-star that, or like, somebody who doesn't clearly have it on film, one of the sought after recruits. I'm not saying it's got to be all 5, because we've shown that actually having a class of almost entirely 4 stars or lower could win a national championship. So I'm okay with it not necessarily being the absolute top of the top all the time. But yes, for a player like Bryce Underwood, for a players like you've mentioned, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have to be top dollar. I don't think we got to get in the A&M, Miami, Oregon, Ohio State game. But there is plenty enough talent to where you don't need to be highest bidder. There's plenty, okay? We can capitalize on that. And I also want to just mention this right now. If anyone has a question, please give us a super chat. We'll pull you right to the front of the line. It'll be a lot easier for us to identify your questions, and we'll be able to answer those for you.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the Buckeye comment there was valid. I do think that we stood behind this banner. I did. I'll admit it. The hey, we're a level above. We're transformational, not transactional, as John mentioned earlier. I think it's probably a little bit of both now. We need to be both. And there's got to be a level playing field for us. We're realizing that our recruiting has not been up to par, despite on-field success for multiple years. So, this has to happen. You can have the best company in the world, but if you're paying half the salary as other companies, people are going to go to the other companies. I mean, that's just how it is. This is we are in a capitalistic society, so you've got to play in the capitalist game. You can't just say we're transactional, come to us. So so that's what I would say. I think the right balance. We do not want to re-recruit players that leave after 1 year, after they didn't win the starting job and they're not there in year 2 or year 3 or whatever. We want to have a high probability that people will stay year after year. Maybe that can be written into contracts, but also maybe that's where that transformational aspect comes in. Right. So.
Yep. Yeah. So obviously this is going to be a developing thing that we're probably going to have as a key topic on most of our shows for a bit as we learn more, because we're going to learn more. And then if all of a sudden you're getting crystal balls for some 5 stars or some players like a Taz Williams or somebody, all of a sudden flips to be a like 80% Michigan or a crystal ball to Michigan, then we might be making some correlations there about some of the recent developments. So watch this space for sure.